got you, I got me, I got us coming together. One heart, one mind, one love, coming together, 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 coming together. One heart, one mind, one love, coming together. Woo! You guys sound great. Okay.
While you're all standing, let's say thank you, God, for this beautiful day.
Thank you, God, for this beautiful day.
And turn and meet one another and introduce yourselves and get somebody's name today. Make a new friend. Dad's going to introduce you, right? Stop. Yes. Yeah. Huh? No.
Am I good? Am I on? Is this happening? I'm gonna ask these. Hey, I'm gonna ask these beautiful children some questions. This is a tradition I did in University of Las Vegas, where we got some wisdom from our youth. We get to hear you guys blab all the time, but how often do we get to hear wisdom from our youth? So, is it okay if I ask you guys some questions? Thank you. I got one yes. I got some please don't come to me. Here's the question. Do you have a home? Yes. Easy, right? Easy. Here's a little bit harder question. How do you know when you're home? So raise your hand, I'll come to you. How do you know when you're home? All right, let me ask you.
Because when I'm at home, I watch TV, play video games, or read in my room.
All right.
I am not reading in my room, playing video games, or watching TV right now, so I'm not home.
So she's not home. So, okay. Some insight into the younger generations. All right, how do you know when you're home?
I'm at home when I feel comfortable.
When you feel comfortable, okay. How do you know when you're home?
When I'm around my family, and I guess if I am, in a shelter.
In a shelter of some sort around your family. So can you be home when you're not in your house?
No. Yes.
Yes. No. Why not?
Because
there's no video games. There's no
home features when you're not home.
There's no home features when you're not home. Let's see.
I do not have a room in this church.
Is there a roof over your head?
Yes, there is a roof over my head, though it is not
Are
my
there
home
video games downstairs?
No.
I'm not going to correct you on that one. All right. I know something you don't. Anyway. Surin, how are you? I won't ask you a question, don't worry. So if we can be home anywhere, do you think you could feel home here?
Yeah.
Do you think, well, I get it. I get the no video game thing. It's not going to happen here. But in general, do you think we could feel home here?
Yeah.
All right, let's do that. Let's do that today. We're going to feel home today. You guys, thank you for doing that. You are dismissed. What normally happens right now in the service, by the way?
You talk.
Oh, I talk. Okay. Are you going to announce me? Is that what's going to happen?
No, I doesn't make a big announcement. You just did it for yourself. You were great.
Blew it.
All right.
Blew it.
No, I was going to give a big introduction, but I asked Shad to sort of give some background on himself so that you could get to know him. I've known him his whole life. And I'll tell you the interesting thing about Shad is he should be from the Show Me state, because his older brother and his sister, Cinticia, as they were growing up, they went through a lot of times of challenging the way things needed to go for there to be peace and harmony. And so that was a problem that we dealt with in the family. But Shad, all along the way, just watched them being disciplined because they were not keeping, what they needed to do. And he never needed to be disciplined like that. He got it by seeing what they went through. He decided in so many cases not to do the things they did that were out of order and not in keeping with bringing forth happiness for themselves. So that's his unique gift. He's the kind of person that looks into something and he will say, and has said to me over the years, I'll prove it to myself or I won't know it to be true. Let's have a big hand for Shad Groverland.
What they don't realize is that I spent that time figuring out the loopholes. So there's that. All right, let me make sure this is on. How are we all doing today, by the way? How are we actually doing today? Okay, we're going to work on that. First time around, you should be doing really well, not just like, okay. Because I feed off of your energy, and you guys are just out there sucking all the energy out of the room. It doesn't help me get things going. So how are we doing today? Yes. Okay, I can work with that. All right, well, before we get there, I like to start off with some words of wisdom when I do a talk. So these are the words of wisdom for this Sunday. You never know when the truth will come home. You can't choose the time chooses you. So let's just take this in for a moment. I am actually standing here. I don't know if you guys realize that. This is actually happening. I am actually a minister now at Unity of Boulder. Some of us have been talking about this for far longer than others, but that's sort of a big thing. So if you don't realize why that's a big thing, just turn to the person next to you and have them explain it to you. So given who I am, you would probably imagine that this would be an obvious place for me to wind up. And I know that a lot of people have said that, well, it was just a matter of time, or we all knew this was going to happen. But what you probably don't realize is that this me being here today, me being a minister at Unity of Boulder, this possible outcome in my life existed as an impossibility up until about 5 months ago. But miracles do happen. There is a divine plan, and I am where I am supposed to be. And more importantly, you are where you are supposed to be today, sitting in that chair right now. But just because you are where you are supposed to be right now doesn't mean that change is not coming soon. Now, no matter how comfortable that chair is you're sitting in right now, change is coming soon because the flow of God is about change. If you've ever experienced the flow of God in your life, it is entirely about change. You cannot be stagnant and in the flow of God. It doesn't work. And to prove my point, I'm going to do something. So I need everyone to stand up who is able. Come on now. This is an actual thing. Now, don't worry, this isn't going to take too long, and you don't have to look at your neighbor or anything awkward like that. So just take a breath, relax. Now you are standing, and you are no longer sitting, so I just proved my point. The Spirit of God is about change. But I need you to stay standing. We're going to do a little bit of research together in this room. So I'm going to need each and every one of you to think back to the moment and time you first met me. So just go ahead and process that in your head right now. Okay, our research starts like this. Only those people who are meeting me for the first time today are allowed to sit down. So if this is the first time you're seeing me or you're meeting me, you can sit down right now. Okay, if you met me for the first time this month, you are allowed to sit down. So if you met me the first time this month, you can sit down. Now as this is happening, take stock of the room. See who's standing. This is research. We're all in this project together. All right, now if you met me for the first time in the last couple years, we'll say about the last 2 years, you can now sit down. All right, we're going to go a little bit further back. Now we're going to say 10 years. If you met me within the last 10 years, so if you met me since 2008, you can now sit down. All right. If you met me first in the last 20 years, so this is since about 1996 when I was in college, if that's around the time you met me, you can now sit down. All right. Going a little bit further back now. This is my high school senior photo, for those of you that remember the mohawk. If you met me 20 years ago, or actually 30 years ago, so we're talking 1998 until now, if that's the time frame you met me, would have been middle school, junior high, high school for me, you can go ahead and sit down. Now remember, look around the room. Let's see who's still standing here, who's left. All right. If you met me for the first time when I was younger than 10 years old, you can sit down. All right, if you met me for the first time when I was younger than 5 years old, you can sit down. Okay. So those of you that knew me as a baby are probably still standing, but you may be seated. I'm the handsome one on the left, by the way, if you hadn't figured that out. It kind of goes uglier as you get taller. So I think our research concludes that I have some history here. Did you notice that process unfold? I have a little bit of history here. And with history comes a challenge. And Jesus put it this way in Mark 6. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house." So I am by no means a prophet. I'm not claiming that word. I'm just relating to the subject matter here. But I do stand here as one of the spiritual leaders in this community. And if even Jesus himself recognized he would face a challenge in his hometown, there is no doubt that I face a similar challenge here. And that my sister Santisha actually faces the same challenge for the sake that you got to watch us grow up. We humans are creatures of perception. Once we have formed a perception, it is nearly impossible to change that perception. It is a very hard thing for us to change, is an embedded perception that we have. Whether you've known me for 41 minutes or you've known me for 41 years, you have already established a perception of who I am. And depending on what your perception is, it will either work for you or it will work against you when I attempt to share the truth I understand with you, standing up here today and in the weeks to come. Everything I say and do will be filtered through your perception of who I am. And part of you has already made up its mind as to whether I am a worthy spiritual leader or not. And it could take weeks, months, or even years to change that perception. And the scary part is you may not even know that you've already created that perception in your subconscious mind. You may have already decided as to whether I am a valuable or worthy spiritual leader or not. And regardless of what I say or do up here, you will filter it through that perception. And on top of that, it's almost impossible for you not to compare me to my father or my sister or to anyone else in a spiritual leadership position that lives or ever lived on this planet. Because the human mind, in the perception machine that it has, once it's formed a perception, it looks at similar things to that perception and starts to weigh them and compare them to the perception that it has established. So there's a little box that's called spiritual leader box, and all other similar things to that go into that little box, and they're all compared together. So I am trapped in a box with Deepak Chopra and all sorts of other people, and we're in there, and we're sweating, and we're trying to get out. It's just a visual for you to work on when you're working on your perception stuff. And for the sake of what I'm saying today, this perception process is not bad, and it is not good. It simply is a part of being human. And so I ask us today to simply just recognize that. Just become aware of the fact that some part of you is doing that right now. Each word I say is modifying your perception in your head, either good or bad as I move along. So how am I doing? I already know I'm dealing with a room of liars. So I don't want you to try to judge or analyze your perception and be like, oh, I'm a horrible person because I don't really think Shad's all that great yet. That's not the point of it. The point is just to recognize that it exists for now. So each of us most likely already has an idea of why I'm standing up here. Each of us probably has already come up with some sort of story as to why I'm here today, based off tidbits of information they've received or other reasons. So here's some possibilities. Number one, I needed a job. Number two, because of nepotism. Number three, I'm running from gambling debts in Las Vegas. The scary part is all of those are true. Let me actually clear up exactly why I am here. I am here to help you spiritually grow. I am here to help this community spiritually grow. And I am here to help humanity spiritually grow. That is why I am here. I would not be doing this otherwise. It's not the money I'm doing it. I made way better money before. I just want to clarify that right now. It is not about that. It is about the calling I have of why I'm standing here today. I am here to assist the consciousness shift that has been trying to break through the apathy and negativity that plagues this planet worldwide today. A dangerous, selfish delusion that plagues humanity. I am here to try to help that consciousness shift finally break through and become the 100th monkey and spread through all humanity. I have no doubt in what I have been called to do. I have no doubt in what I am capable of doing and what we can do together. But the operative word is together. What we can do together. So maybe some people out there see the young kid who was just running around causing trouble in the church all the time. Maybe some people see the rebellious teenager who had the mohawk and had a loud stereo in his car and thought he knew it all. Maybe some people see the young man who went out in the world overly confident and immature, thinking he was going to take it by the horns and run life the way he wanted it to. Or maybe you're seeing me the first time and I'm just the unknown element that has yet to earn your trust in this position. And of course, how can we help but see me as Jack's son? And who could really live up to being Jack's son in Jack's church? Well, I consider it an honor to be Jack's son. But as one of my Las Vegas congregants pointed out when they found out I was leaving and said this, you will never be Reverend Shad in Boulder. You will always be Jack's son living in your father's shadow. They were a little upset, by the way. I don't agree with that. And it's really not a concern of mine, mainly because nobody knows Joel Osteen as John Osteen's son. So there's hope for me. We make perceptions about people, speaking of one, even though we really have no idea of who they are. Based on very little information whatsoever, we make perceptions about people. So I want to share with you some information about myself. I think knowing a bit more about me is going to help me in this spiritual relationship that's going to unfold throughout the years. And as time goes on, I look forward to learning more about you so that it is a healthy give and take relationship. So enough about me, let's talk about me. This will be Shad's life in under 20 minutes. I was an estimation, it might be 40 minutes depending on how this goes, so don't hold me to that. So I was born to Jack and Norma Groverland in San Angelo, Texas in 1976. We're pretty sure that's me. There was a little bit of debate at the house, but we're pretty sure that's me. Only because of the swimsuit my mom's wearing. It signifies the time frame, right? And actually the buildings in the background are from Texas, so that helps. So I have an older brother, Dell, and I have an older brother, Santisha. We're not there yet. And I, of course, was raised with the two of them. And at this time, my dad was already ordained as a minister, and he had a ministry in San Angelo, Texas. So I was born into the world of my dad being a minister, whereas Santisha and my brother came in a little bit before that. So this is just at the time when my parents are starting to get their life together. This is just the tail end of their time of difficulty and poverty and struggle as they were trying to get through life. And as my brother likes to point out, it's not fair that I showed up just as they were starting to get their act together. So when I was 1 year old, my dad interviewed at Unity of Boulder. And the interview was terrible. But after some under-the-table bribes, he did convince them to hire him. At least that's the story as I take it. Does anyone know what's in the background behind me and Erna in this picture? This is the first church that we had here in Boulder, and it's still standing. And me and Erna went over there, and I showed it to her, and we got to check it out. And there's actually a really cool little guitar shop in the basement. So if you need guitar strings and guitar repair and that sort of thing, go check it out. They're sitting on holy ground. There's a guitar shop on holy ground. And the wings are still up in the window. They still have the stained glass up in the windows from when the church was there. So that's pretty neat. Anybody remember this building? This is the church on Spruce Street, which has had the front modified. There used to be a giant staircase coming down the front of that. Now they've put this little proscenium there, which is now E-Town Hall, for those of you that have gone by there. So we have had 3 churches in Boulder. We started out with the little church on Pearl Street, which had living quarters in the back, which the family lived in right behind the church. And then we had this building, which was significantly bigger. And then we moved into the one that we're standing in today. So there's a little history for you there. Really, the only memory I have from the very first church on Pearl Street is a nightmare I had about Godzilla attacking Boulder. There's nothing to that. I was just sharing that with you. There's no metaphor or anything. It just was. My memories really began at the second church, which is this church in the picture, which you can still see today. And thankfully, they actually have their interior photos on Google. So this is a picture of the sanctuary. It's obviously been modified since for the E-Town Hall, but I believe those pews on the right are still the exact same pews we had. Am I wrong? Pretty neat, right? The stage is still there. They still have the wings on the side. And this stained glass window on the far right, I actually got arrested for climbing through that once. I'm not kidding. Dad probably remembers when they called him. Anyway. Yes. So I didn't actually go to jail. We worked it all out while I was in handcuffs. I was about 12 years old in handcuffs, so we all know that people get bored. So anyway, fill in the blanks for yourself. Anyway, so a very influential moment happened in this sanctuary. This is where my brother Dell got fed up with being the church sound guy and dumped it on me. He handed me the job. I was about 12 years old. He gave me some very rudimentary training, and off we went. And little did most people know at the time, that moment would spark my lifelong passion and career, which we'll get into a little bit later. So I was 14 years old, I believe, when we finished this building right here on Folsom Street. And it was about around the age 15 when the book Way of the Peaceful Warrior made it into my hands. To this day, I don't know who sent it to our house, if my parents put it in the mail in my name and sent it and had it come back to the house, or however that worked. But it was sent to me from somebody. I read that book, and it ignited my own spiritual journey. For the first time in my life, I actually tried meditating on my own and starting to try to discover my own spirituality. At the age of 17, my friend Jarrett and I, who I believe is actually watching online right now, we decided that together we would wake up each morning, come here and meditate in the meditation room before we go to school in high school. And we did that for quite a while in this very room downstairs. And at that time, I moved from a spiritual receiver. I had grown up in the youth program. I'd heard a lot of things. I knew a lot of things. I was a spiritual receiver, just sort of downloading it all. But at that moment, I became a spiritual seeker. I started to put it into practice. I started to test it. I started to make it my own. So then I went off to college. I received a degree in sound engineering from the University of Colorado. You might be familiar with that place. I also received a certificate from Red Rocks Community College in film and video studies there. And then I went off to LA to pursue my dream of mixing sound for feature films. Yes, but I actually wound up mostly doing audio restoration work, which means I was restoring the audio on all the old films for re-release on DVD or Blu-ray. So I was working on Gone with the Wind and Ghostbusters and Blazing Saddles and stuff like that, re-releasing them. So when you watch those today, a lot of those were moi. And if you hear a mistake, that was also me. So I did that. So I was out there in LA. I was climbing in my career. I was moving up the ladders. And in 2003, I had my daughter arrived, Shad Groverland. And this is about the time things were going really well. And I actually started investing in real estate. I was actually having some extra income, started investing in real estate and buying properties. After about 4 years in LA, I realized it was time to get out. There are people who love LA, and then there are people who don't. And I realized after 4 years, I was in the don't category. And so I moved, and I went to the next most logical city that would have sound work for me, which was Las Vegas. And I decided to get back into doing live sound like I did here with actual bands, actual musicians, actual performers, with the lights and the energy and all that. And that's what I did. And I started out at the Golden Nugget Casino was my first job in Las Vegas. And I was there a few months before I actually landed a job at the MGM Grand in their sound department, working with their sound team throughout the property. So we did everything from concerts to big shows in the arena to pool parties out at the pool with DJs and clubs and all that sort of stuff. So we had to work the entire property all over the place. And that was a lot of fun. I was on that job for about 7 years and worked my way up to being the head of that department. So I oversaw all the sound crew for the MGM Grand Hotel. I was there for a while, and then I was invited to join the corporate MGM Resorts production team, which actually oversaw all 12 of the MGM properties on the Las Vegas Strip. And I did do that for about 3 years in that position. Around the same time, here I am in Las Vegas, my daughter's growing up, and I realize I need to find a church home. I want my daughter to have the same experience I had growing up in Unity. So I did some searching on the web, and I found Unity of Las Vegas, which was actually called Unity Church of the Desert at the time. And they were meeting in this small little performance space that existed in the back of a music store. So you'd have to walk through all the grand pianos and violins and everything to get to the back of the music store, and then they had this little performance space, and we met in there every Sunday. And we were doing what's called church in a box. You had to show up about 7, you had to pull all your stuff out of closets, you had to set up your chairs, you had to set up your altar and your lights and your sound and everything and do all that. It was church in the box. And so I was there, and I became a member of that church, and then I asked if I could join the youth team and work with the YOU, the teenage kids. So I actually did. I did that for a couple years. I was working with them, having a blast actually sharing what I had grown up with this next generation of young adults. And then I was asked if I'd be willing or consider joining the board of the church. And after some prayerful consideration, I did accept that position, and I joined as a trustee on the board. So now here we are about spring of 2012. All this time has passed. I'm sitting on the board of the church. And things take a rapid turn towards Sucksville. Has anyone else ever been there? Some of us are living there. This is the post-housing bubble of 2008, as you can imagine, and all my real estate investments, which I had tried to keep alive, had foreclosed. So I had some pummeling debt crashing upon me. I was also in the middle of losing my personal residence. That was in the middle of foreclosure as well. I was now actually simultaneously filing for bankruptcy because I had a lot of stuff piling on me and there was no way I was going to get on top. My life was literally crashing around me as I was trying to stay afloat. So here I was a single dad with a daughter, 2 dogs, and 2 exchange students. Yes, the exchange students got to experience this with me. It was really a true representation of the American life, I thought. So they got an authentic American experience. Bankruptcy is an authentic American experience, I think. So here I am, I'm in the midst of this chaos. I'm actually just completely buried psychologically and physically. And I decided to take my daughter skiing for her very first time ever at a ski resort that's just 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas. Believe it or not, they do have snow. And so here we are on her very first day of skiing. That's a picture from that day. Just moments before, so I placed her in ski school so she'd have the experience of learning the basics. I went on the mountain by myself. And being the guy that I am at that time, I decided to take the biggest jump on the mountain, and when I landed, I shattered my foot into several pieces. My heel just exploded inside my foot. And so this is good timing, right? Everything else is going great in life. Why not shatter your foot while you're at it? So I now can't go back to work because my work requires me being able to lift and walk and do all these things. So I am trapped on my couch for 3 months. And I'm stuck on the couch with nothing to do but time to ponder. And these are the questions that come into my mind. What is going on with my life? How did I get here? And how do I get out? Has anyone else ever been in a time like this? You gotta be proud of this. Raise your hands high. We shouldn't be ashamed of this. I'm laying it on the line here. At least you could raise your hand. Okay. So we've been there. If you're currently there, let me tell you, just hold on. Help is on the way, all right? So I sat and I pondered for a few weeks. I knew something was calling me forward that I had been ignoring or that I'd been too busy to deal with. A feeling and a knowing had been pushing me and pulling me, but I was trying to shove it aside year after year, likely because I didn't think this was for me. Ministry was my father's thing. Has anyone ever been in that situation? This is not my thing, this is my parents' thing. Well, ministry was my father's thing. I had my own direction, I had my own plan. I was convinced of that. And I was working my tail off to try to make that happen, my specific plan. But life literally picked me up 20 feet in the air and just smashed me down into the snow. And it did this in order to get me to stop. long enough to listen. What if ministry was my thing too? Why not at least test the waters to see if it's a fit? How many people recognize this place? We got some work to do. This is Unity Village. This is what we sometimes call Unity's Mecca. This is our home. This is our mother church. This is where it all began. It's one of the most beautiful places on earth. And Earth? Welcome to Earth. Shad to Earth. Anyway, this is one of the most beautiful places, and if you have never been there, it is holy ground. Well, I had about 2 months of healing left on my foot, and what better place to spend it than at Unity Village, taking classes. So I called home, which is now here, to see if someone could come to Vegas and watch my kids and my dogs in my house so I could go to Unity Village. I was expecting it likely to be my mom that came, but I was surprised that my dad was actually the one assigned the task. So he came out to watch my life for me for 2 weeks while I went to Unity Village. So you have to remember, I had a broken foot and I was traveling across the country. So I came up with this way of dragging my wheeled luggage behind my knee scooter I had to use to get around the airport by myself. I was proud of that contraption. You guys obviously are not that impressed. That's fine. So now we come to another turning point in my life. The moment my taxi that I had to take from the airport to Unity Village, the moment it passed through the gates of Unity Village, I knew with absolute certainty that ministry was my calling. When I saw that sign that I had seen when I was a tiny kid when we go there with my dad for conference and different things he had, when I saw that sign, I knew with absolute certainty that ministry was my calling. That's me. I completed 8 classes while I was there for those 2 weeks. So they do these intensives at Unity Village. So I knocked out 8 classes on the ministerial path while I was there for those 2 weeks. And I headed back to Vegas. So I'm still on the board at the time at the Unity of Las Vegas Church. I'd only been there a short time, maybe a few months. And we decided that the music store was not cutting it anymore. We needed our own space. We were growing. We needed to make something happen. But we really had no reason to think that because we had no money. We didn't have a whole lot coming in. There really was no financial reason we would think we should be able to move. But we went ahead on faith. We set the intention as the board that we are moving, whether we have the money or not, we are moving. We started fundraising, we found a location, and we made it happen. Now, during our renovations to prepare the space for us to move in, we, the board, decided to part ways with the current minister. And it was decided to let her go and to not renew her contract. And this created much controversy, as you could imagine, in the church. And a lot of congregants left, and the church actually split at that point. We were left with very little congregation, next to no funds, and we had no minister, and we were days away from moving into our new space that we had just dumped all this money into renovating. And so I volunteered on the board. I said, well, I'll just cover Sunday talks until we can hire a minister. I'll do that for free. I know we don't have money to pay me. We'll go ahead and do that. They all accepted the idea, and this went on for 5 months. I covered the Sunday talks. We had a couple of guest speakers come in to help me out. And when I started out, there was probably about 20 people there that first Sunday because we just split. We just had this giant falling out. There was a lot of mudslinging that had happened. But attendance was starting to rise over those 5 months that I was volunteering and speaking on Sunday. But we still did not have the money that it would take to hire a minister, let alone to interview ministers, which requires you paying to fly them out, to put them up, to do this whole process. So the board decided that they would offer me the position as a part-time position, that they would just pay me for my time on Sunday to compensate me for that. And so I accepted. So now here I am, a full-time job at the MGM Resorts Corporation, a part-time job at Unity of Las Vegas, and I'm taking full-time school online through the Unity Urban School. And I still got the kids and the dogs and that whole thing. Had I not met Erina and had the support of my daughter Anna and Erina through the process, it would not have been possible. So I married Erina in 2014. I graduated from the Unity program in 2015, and by that time the church had the funds to hire me full-time. So I left my job at the MGM Resorts and went full-time at Unity of Las Vegas in 2015. In 2016, I was ordained as a Unity minister. So in that particular schooling path, you actually graduate 1 year, and then you spend a year interning, and then you become ordained at the end of that year. So it was a 4-year program. So I was ordained in 2016, and we also had the funds to hire Erina as our church administrator at Unity of Las Vegas, which she did. So things were flowing and growing for a while. Everything was growing great. The church was expanding. Our youth program was blowing up. We got to the point where we had 50 kids in the youth program when we had 80 parents sitting in the sanctuary. So you try to figure out that math. What we did discover is that our youth program was so good, people were dropping off their kids and going somewhere else. So my talking wasn't all that hot, but the youth program, that was where it was at. It's no joke. We found them sitting in the parking lot while their kids were in the youth program. Anyway, not a big issue. But here we are now. Things are going quite well. But now we get to the summer of 2017, so this past summer. And something is not feeling right, and Erina and myself start talking about it. Something doesn't feel right, and we can't quite put our finger on it. Something has shifted, and we feel like there is a force pushing us away from the church in Las Vegas. And something else is calling us to come to it. Now this time, instead of waving it off and ignoring it until life thrashes me into the snow again, I decide to actually slow down, listen, and meditate. I take it deep into prayer and meditation, and I start asking the question of the universe, what is it? I feel it again. You're pushing me. What is it? Where am I supposed to go? The message was clear. Only part of it. The message was, you are no longer supposed to be in Las Vegas. Didn't give me much to go on, but it was pretty straightforward. The first step was, I was not supposed to be in Las Vegas. Erina and I both got the same message. We both knew it was true. We were no longer to be in Las Vegas. But we could not believe this to be the case. How could we say goodbye to the church we had been investing every bit of ourselves into for these years? To the friends and the loved ones in our congregation, how could we possibly say goodbye to them after we have put so much time and energy into developing these friendships with these family members? But there was no denying that the Vegas church had to move on without us. They had a calling as well. They were being called in one direction, and we were being called in another direction, and neither one of us was leaving the other. We were both going where we were supposed to go. Now, you and everyone else would likely assume we then decided to look at Boulder as our destination, but that is not the case. As I said, Boulder was not an option or consideration for many reasons. We knew we would no longer be in Vegas. We had that information, but we had no idea where we were being called to go next. We even considered the possibility that maybe we're not supposed to be in ministry at all. Maybe this is the end of our service in ministry. We looked at various job opportunities. We looked at different church openings around the United States on the Unity website. We talked about the possibility of me going back into sound and maybe going out on tour with a band and taking my career to a different direction. But things started happening that made our conversations and our planning completely a moot point. Things beyond our control or expectations were in the works. Pieces started falling into place that we could not have ever planned for or even imagined to be possible. And a path was clearly being paved in front of us. And all we were being asked to do was to step forward on faith. We didn't know where it was going in the very beginning, but we knew we were supposed to step forward on faith and watch it unfold. But there did become a point in time when it became quite clear our path was in fact leading us here. All the details that previously had made it impossible for this to be an option began to work themselves out without us being involved whatsoever. And let me tell you, saying goodbye to our church and congregation in Las Vegas was a deeply, deeply difficult and painful process. But it, like many others, was a necessary growing pain on the path. Now, since my ski crash and my ultimate life crash in 2012, my very existence has been shifted in an entirely new direction. And these past 6 months especially, they have been the most transformative months in my entire life. Never before have I seen God so blatantly revealed in front of my face. God usually likes to work behind the scenes in subtle ways, but recently God gave up on that for me. God threw back the curtain and said, "Enough of this. Shad, if you love me and you trust me, I will guide you. If you love me and you trust me, I will guide you." I have been changed. I have been completely transformed. The way I meditate and I pray and I communicate with the divine that I call God, the way I do that today is completely different than how I've done it before. So different, in fact, it would have been embarrassing to me 10 years ago. My love and respect and reverence for God has become a crucial and tangible part of my life. It is the forefront of who I am, and it has revealed to me what I am. I am here now because I want to share this experience with you. I want to ignite this passion and this dedication that I feel. I want to ignite that flame within you, so you can feel what I am feeling at this time. I want to watch you transform your life. That is why I am here. When they talk about ministers and a minister's job, they talk about spreading the word. I really don't care to spread the word. That sounds really boring to me. I want to transform your life. I want you to come back every week and go, "My God, I am not the person I was 7 days ago." I want to see you transform your life over and over again, not just once, because we continually grow on this path and we continually reinvent ourselves closer and closer to the true expression of the divine that we are. It doesn't happen once. It happens again and again, and each time it happens, you look back at the person you were and you went, "Wow, this is incredible." You are divine in nature. You are God in manifestation. You are Christ in expression. You are limitless. I ask that you join me in dedicating yourself to this work, to this center, and to this unity movement. Together, let's see how high we can get this bird to fly. Does that sound like a deal? And that's the truth as I experience it. Thank you.
Don't overdo it. He'll ask for a raise. We'll take an offering for unity now. And while we're preparing to do that, I'd just like to let you know, along with Santisha, our board of directors, and Mike and the staff, and myself and Shad, we have been brainstorming and praying and moving to really expand the ministry here in such a way as to do just what Shad said he would like to do. Help you really find that beautiful, transformative place in God consciousness. That's what we're doing. And we know that in doing it, you will support it because you will find the joy and the love of God consciousness. So as we take our offerings in our hands, let's bless them with this offering statement. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. Together, please. Divine love is my true life and my conscious destiny. Therefore, I give. And before we have the band play, I'd like to say we have, an extraordinary opportunity here. But I forgot to mention the input and the insight that came through Norma in providing this whole ideal that we're moving toward. And now, Shad's wife and best friend, Shad Groverland.
Testing, great. When you're ready. Where I am, God is. Where I stand, God is standing strong. Where I breathe, God is breathing life in and out and through me, as me. Where I sing, God is. Where I dance, joy lifts my feet. Where I live, beauty's flowing free, in and out and through me, as me. Where I doubt, God is the faith in me. Where I cry, God is the comfort there. Where I seek, God is the answer, here and now, forever and ever and ever. Where I speak, truth is. Where I work, love is my career. Where I play, God is playing boldly, in and out and through me, as me. Oh, do do do.
Well, thank you very much for sharing with us this beautiful Sunday morning. And now we have the opportunity to get together and share in that barbecue that our incredible kitchen staff and volunteers have worked to put together. It's a potluck barbecue. It's taking place right after this service. So I invite you all to participate. If you don't have anything to put on the table, you can still, we have time. It's going to be 20 minutes or 30 minutes before we get around to eating. But if you'd like to, you can just stop over at the supermarket and bring something in. Or if you can't do that, join us anyway. We'd love to have your company. Shall we all rise? Face the center aisle. Oh, no, we're going to have the kids sing. So
they're singing with us.
I'm going to sing with us, but you don't have to face the center aisle. You can face the children. How you doing, kid? So it is.